thoughts about one of those themes. So Grumman talks about citizenship. Gibbon speaks at length about national character, I guess is how I would frame the way Gibbon talks about it. We are currently living in 2020 in a time of, if not post-imperial, at least shifting ideas of what empire is, whether it's formal or informal. Ideas about multiculturalism are shifting, having, I guess, hit various peaks in the 90s and early 2000s and sort of the Anglo-Atlantic. Where do you see these continuing discussions about citizenship and national character informing modern scholarship? What do you feel like we can learn from either the Romans or the 18th century idea of the Romans or the 20th century idea of the 18th century idea of the Romans? Where does it all kind of connect?
Well, there are a number of things that Grumman identifies in Gibbon that are live issues today. They're not just in the historical arena, they are in people's lived experience. This idea of, I suppose, we're in a post-imperial condition, but it's these kind of questions about assimilation, multiculturalism. How do we have cohesive societies? Like I say, these are live. This is a week in which there's conversations about a girl who lost her British citizenship being repatriated, and all those kinds of, again, it's kind of showing how live these issues are. Concepts about community cohesion, where we are, what makes a British person, what do British people do. There's also, again, with the rise of queues again, because of social distancing in shops, this idea that the British are somehow better at queuing, as if it's something that is part of your DNA, that you're just born or grow up in Britain, that you're good at queuing. I disagree with that. I think Britain's like moaning about queuing, not actually being good at queuing per se. But these haven't gone away, and there are those kind of so what is it? What is a national identity? What do we mean by that? What's community? And this idea that, and I suppose grappling with ideas that communities are in some ways coherent within those, that there isn't a diversity of opinion, of experience, that there aren't people who have differences in power and other kind of inequalities in other areas as well, that people like those communities. So again, those kind of ideas about assimilation and what or not, and how that shapes, and again, these kind of questions. A lot of this is based around what the Romans did in the places they were, and how they, and how this weakened them with the barbarian threat, etc. But none of these have gone away. We live in some ways the aftermath of the British Empire and all the things that it did, and that empire might have had its decline and fall, but it is nonetheless, these are real things, and they are, because they enter into so many things that are live about government policy, about people's behaviour, how they treat others. And so I read those bits and they were live to me in 2020. Someone who teaches history but also engages with political science as well. It's like, there's nothing, this could be written about today in many ways. Again, and he's talking, looking at Gibbon, but these are live questions that the Home Office are grappling with all the time in the context of Britain. So yeah, and again, I suppose it goes back to what we were saying about the universal and the general. These are not issues that have gone away at all. We might think of them as being very 21st century, but they have their roots. And again, I think this is where we might be. The universal isn't necessarily, it might not be what we think it is, but the desire, there's this continuing human desire, it would seem, for power and how that manifests in the world. And that is for me one of the universal things about this. It might be about Rome, about the 18th century, but it's about things that are very real to people today.
I will leave the floor to you then. Do you have any final thoughts on Grumman or Gibbon that you feel um, are particularly noteworthy, especially in the context of theory and historiography?
I think mainly that people should read the Grumman article. They may, if they do feel like dipping into Gibbon, they should do that as well, or more than dipping in, they might want to start at the beginning and get to the end of it. But I think the value for me of this is that kind of way of, and I think it is through this kind of idea of thinking about themes, but it is about what's specific, what's universal, and what are the, and I suppose this is where the theme is particularly important from Grumman, is that it encourages to think about not necessarily, well, there's many ways in which you can approach a different historical period and you can focus on certain things, but in some ways it's the commonality. So why are we still grappling with issues about citizenship in 2020? And perhaps through that approach on theme, we can approach things in different ways so that someone might not have thought, oh, what's the decline and fall of the Roman Empire got to do with me? Well, actually, quite a lot if you're interested in citizenship or the role of armies, for example. So, yeah, it's that ability to think about what are the issues here? Why are we still grappling with these issues? Why haven't we solved them? What are we trying to do?